June 25, 1876. A blood-soaked prairie. A wounded soldier crawls desperately through the tall grass, his uniform torn, his breath ragged. Behind him, the thunder of hooves grows louder, thousands of Lakota and Cheyenne warriors closing in. Bullets whiz past as he drags his shattered body toward safety. But his comrades are already galloping away, leaving him behind. This is the story of Vincent Charley, a forgotten soldier of the Little Bighorn. A split-second decision sealed his fate and haunted his commander for decades. What really happened that day? And why did history almost erase his name? Picture this: the vast plains of Montana, 1876. The American West is a powder keg of tension. Gold-hungry settlers push deeper into native lands, and the U.S. Cavalry is tasked with clearing the path. But on June 25th, that path leads to disaster, the Battle of the Little Bighorn. You've probably heard of General Custer's last stand, but this story isn't about glory or legends. It's about a man history nearly erased. This battle wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a cultural earthquake. Over 2,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors, defending their families and way of life, faced off against 700 soldiers of the 7th Cavalry. In just 2 days, Custer and 268 of his men lay dead. But today, we're not focusing on the generals or the myths. This is about a forgotten soldier, Private Vincent Charley. A 27-year-old Swiss immigrant turned U.S. Army farrier. Charley had spent 5 years shoeing horses and mending equipment. He wasn't a hero in the history books until 1992, when modern science dragged his story out of the dirt. His bones revealed secrets: a shattered pelvis, a skull reconstructed, and a truth darker than the prairie night. Strap in, we're about to unravel exactly what happened in those fateful hours, and why this quiet farrier's fate still chills us to the bone. Imagine a young man far from home. Switzerland's snow-capped mountains traded for the dusty plains of Montana. This is Vincent Charley, 27 years old, a quiet immigrant with calloused hands and a soldier's grit. By 1876, he'd spent 5 years in the U.S. Army, not as a rifleman or a cavalry hero, but as the backbone of the 7th Cavalry's D Company, a farrier. His job? Shoeing horses, repairing gear, keeping the cavalry moving. Without men like Charley, those famous mounted charges would have collapsed before they began. Day after day, he hammered iron shoes onto hooves, smelled burning hoof keratin, and listened to the clang of his anvil, a rhythm as steady as his heartbeat. But on June 25th, 1876, everything changed. Charley wasn't just a support soldier anymore. When the 7th Cavalry rode toward the Little Bighorn River, he was in the thick of it, part of Captain Benteen's detachment, sent to find Major Reno's battered troops. A farrier with no combat glory, until history thrust him into a nightmare. What happened next would leave him bleeding in the grass, abandoned by his own comrades, and lost to time for over a century. This is the story the Army didn't want you to hear. The summer sun beat down mercilessly on June 25th, 1876, as D Company of the 7th Cavalry rode across the Montana prairie. Their mission was clear but urgent: reinforce Major Reno's troops, who were reportedly engaged in fierce combat. Captain Benteen led the column, his men's faces etched with determination as they pushed their horses forward, responding to the distant echoes of gunfire. Among these soldiers rode Vincent Charley, not as a frontline fighter, but as the company's farrier. His position was toward the rear of the formation, where support troops traditionally rode. The tools of his trade hammers, files, and horseshoes clinked rhythmically against his saddle with each stride. While others carried ammunition and weapons for the impending battle, Charley's gear spoke to his vital, yet less glamorous role, keeping the cavalry's horses battle-ready. The atmosphere grew tenser as they approached the sound of combat. 2 distinct volleys of gunfire echoed from the north, possibly signals from Custer's men. Through the shimmering heat waves, they could see dust clouds rising from what they assumed was Reno's position. None of them, especially Charley, could have predicted how their routine support mission would soon transform into one of the most dramatic moments of their lives. Ahead lay Reno's scattered forces, retreating in disarray from their failed attack on the village. The calm, organized reinforcement they expected to provide was about to become something far more desperate and chaotic. For Charley, his position in the rear of the formation would soon prove fatefully significant in the unfolding tragedy. As the situation intensified, D Company arrived at Weir's Point, a strategic high ground from which they hoped to gain clarity on the unfolding battle. Instead of order, they found chaos. The horizon below rolled with movement. Thousands of Lakota and Cheyenne warriors swarmed across the plain, a formidable force of resistance. The sounds of battle grew nearer and more ominous. From their vantage point, the soldiers could see that the situation was quickly spiraling out of control. On the distant Last Stand Hill, the silhouettes of Custer's troops were barely discernible amid the dust and gunfire. They realized, with growing horror, that the battalion was surrounded and being overwhelmed. What followed was pandemonium. As gunfire erupted around them, bullets whizzed dangerously close, snapping through the air. Men shouted orders and warnings, attempting to form a defensive line. However, the press of warriors advancing towards them made it clear that holding this position was impossible. The officers, recognizing the untenable situation, made the fateful decision to retreat to Reno Hill, where they could regroup with the rest of the cavalry. The command to pull back sliced through the chaos, and the soldiers wheeled their horses around, desperate to put distance between themselves and the oncoming fighters. In the midst of this frantic withdrawal, Vincent Charley, still riding near the support troops, found himself caught in the open. As he urged his horse to a gallop, a bullet struck him from behind, tearing through his right hip. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, sending him tumbling from his horse into the tall grass. The retreat continued around him, the din of battle fading slightly as Charley lay in agony, struggling to move. His injury was severe, and as his fellow soldiers rode on, he was left behind, exposed and vulnerable in the vast prairie. This moment marked the beginning of his tragic isolation. Alone, amidst the chaos of battle. In the midst of the chaotic retreat from Weir's Point, with bullets flying and dust obscuring vision, the soldiers were driven by a singular urgency to reach the relative safety of Reno Hill. Among them rode Lieutenant Winfield Edgerly, responsible for maintaining order amid the retreating men. It was during this frantic dash that Edgerly encountered Vincent Charley, struggling in the tall grass, injured and unable to keep pace. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met. Edgerly was faced with an agonizing decision: adhere to orders to fall back and safeguard the majority, or risk further delay by halting to assist the wounded Charley. The battlefield roared around them, a constant reminder of the impending danger. Caught between duty and compassion, Edgerly had to make a choice. His responsibility was first to the many under his command, ensuring their safe return in the face of overwhelming odds. It was an impossible situation, where split-second decisions carried enormous weight. In that moment, he made a promise he could not keep, a promise that Charley would not be forgotten, that help would come. As Edgerly rode on, the guilt of leaving a man behind gnawed at him. The reality of battle often forced such harsh decisions, but that knowledge did little to mitigate the personal burden. For Charley, left alone with his wounds, those words of reassurance were the last tether to hope in an otherwise dire situation. Riding to safety, Edgerly was dogged by the haunting realization that despite good intentions, war often left behind promises, unfulfilled, and lives unresolved. Charley's plight became etched in his memory, a silent testament to the brutal choices war demands. These moments of decision highlighted the profound complexity of command, where every choice carried its own shadow, lengthened by the setting sun of battle. As the dust settled and the echoes of gunfire faded, Vincent Charley's tragic fate became a haunting legacy of the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Left to the elements and the ruthless hand of war, his final moments were a testament to the brutality of that day. When they found him, he was already gone, his life taken in both agony and solitude. Vincent Charley's body lay undiscovered for nearly 2 days. Alone on that vast prairie, his surroundings silent, except for the rustle of the wind through the grass. When the soldiers finally returned, they stumbled upon a grim scene. The details spoke of a cruel end. A guidance staff, a simple flagpole, had been violently thrust down his throat. To those who found him, it was a visceral symbol of the war's savagery, a chilling testament to the violence he endured. But the horror didn't stop there. The bullet that had brought him down had done its work, piercing through his right pelvis from behind a shot fired in retreat, when the hope of survival was already slipping away. In his final moments, Charley had crawled through the grass, clinging to life, hoping for rescue that never came. Such was the grim fate of many on that battlefield. But Charley's end bore a particularly poignant cruelty. His sacrifice, nearly lost to the annals of time, was a stark reminder of the countless personal tragedies interwoven with the grand narratives of history. Forgotten in an unmarked grave, Charley's story might have ended there, swallowed by time and silence. But the past has a way of reaching out, demanding to be heard, refusing to let the memory of a life vanish completely from the pages of history. The long shadows of that fateful day stretched far beyond the battlefield, etching a lasting impact on those who survived. For Lieutenant Edgerly, the decision to leave Vincent Charley behind was not just a momentary wartime choice, but a haunting regret that lingered for decades. He would carry the weight of that day, a burden that pressed heavily upon his conscience. The image of Charley struggling alone in the tall prairie grass was a specter that visited him often, a vivid reminder of a promise unfulfilled. As the years rolled by, Vincent Charley's story seemed to fade into the background of history's grand tapestry, his name absent from the lists of the fallen. Initially, he was buried among the many at the battlefield, where his grave was marked, simply, anonymously. Without the means to identify every soldier, many were consigned to graves marked with the simple word unknown. Charley became one of these, a nameless casualty, acknowledged but not remembered. It wasn't until years later, in 1904, that the remains found on the field were reinterred at the Custer National Cemetery. Yet, even here, Vincent Charley remained unrecognized, his sacrifices obscured by time and circumstance. The forensic advancements of decades later would finally shed light on his identity. But for much of the 20th century, he was just another unknown, a poignant symbol of the personal stories lost within larger historical events. The uncovering of Charley's identity in 1992 offered a semblance of closure, but the echoes of regret for Lieutenant Edgerly, and indeed for Charley's distant descendants, underscored the enduring human cost of battle, a vivid reminder of duty, decision, and the heart's quiet reckonings. In 1992, the past and present converged in a remarkable way, as modern forensic science brought new light to the long-lost story of Vincent Charley. For over a century, his identity had been veiled under the anonymity of an unknown soldier. But now, advanced technology was ready to unveil the truth that had eluded historians for so long. Forensic experts embarked on a meticulous journey to identify Charley, utilizing techniques that had evolved tremendously over the years. The process began with a close examination of skeletal remains long thought to belong to one of the many soldiers who perished at Little Bighorn. Scientists scrutinized these bones, searching for clues that would finally give a name to the unknown grave. Among the defining discoveries was the injury pattern, a significant gunshot wound to the pelvis. This detail aligned precisely with historical accounts and eyewitness testimonies of Charley's injury during the battle. The angle and condition of the wound gave experts insight into the circumstances surrounding his tragic fall, confirming the desperate moments of his retreat. Furthermore, advancements in bone analysis allowed for a more precise estimation of age and physical characteristics at the time of death, which matched Vincent Charley's known profile. By piecing together these forensic clues, scientists were able to connect the remains conclusively to Charley, giving him back his name and his place in history. This breakthrough not only restored Charley's identity, but also underscored the power of forensic science to bridge gaps in history, providing closure to mysteries that had persisted for generations. It was a poignant reminder of how modern technology can serve as a lens through which we honor and understand the stories of those who came before us, ensuring that even those deemed unknown are never truly forgotten. In the pursuit of historical truth, modern science offered not only a name to the fallen, but also a face. The remarkable journey to restore Vincent Charley's identity reached its peak with the technology of facial reconstruction, a poignant blend of art and science that brought him back from obscurity. Using the skeletal remains identified as his, forensic artists worked painstakingly to recreate Charley's visage, layering tissue depth markers and leveraging advanced 3D modeling techniques. The result was more than an image. It was a window into the past, revealing the features of a young Swiss immigrant who had journeyed so far from home. This facial reconstruction offered historians and descendants alike a personal connection to Charley. No longer was he just a name on a list or an anonymous casualty. He was a real person, with hopes, dreams, and a story that had been silenced too soon. Seeing his face helped bridge the gap between the historic and the human, transforming abstract history into a narrative endowed with life and empathy. Restoring his identity was profoundly significant, for it symbolized recognition and remembrance. It was a collective acknowledgement of his sacrifice and an affirmation that every soldier's story matters, regardless of their rank or role. In honoring Vincent Charley, we honor all who served alongside him, ensuring their contributions are never lost to time. Through the lens of modern science, we are reminded that history is not static. It is a tapestry continuously enriched by new discoveries and perspectives. The restoration of Charley's identity served as a testament to the enduring legacy of those who came before us, emphasizing the importance of remembering each individual's humanity amidst the vast sweep of history. As we bring Vincent Charley's story to a close, we find ourselves reflecting on the poignant lessons of responsibility and choice in the theater of war. His tale is a stark reminder of the decisions made in the heat of battle choices that often carried profound consequences. For Lieutenant Edgerly, and perhaps for those who serve today, Charley's fate underscores the weight of command decisions, of promises made under pressure, and the lasting impact they have on both those who give them and those who live or die by them. The legacy of this story extends beyond the battlefield, emphasizing the vital importance of preserving historical memory. By reclaiming Vincent Charley's identity, we not only pay homage to a lone soldier, but also honor all who fought and fell in anonymity. Their stories, once silenced, enrich our understanding of history as raw, personal, and deeply human. This commitment to remembering has profound significance. It ensures that the lessons of the past are not lost to time, and that the sacrifices made are never forgotten. In preserving these memories, we nurture a collective responsibility to learn from history, to honor those who served, and to ensure that their experiences continue to inform our present and shape our future. As we reflect on Vincent Charley's journey, from a Swiss farrier securing his place in history, to a figure of remembrance, we are reminded of the enduring power of history to connect and teach us. His story is our story, an ongoing narrative that calls us to bear witness, to remember, and to learn. As we conclude Vincent Charley's moving story, we invite you to reflect on the themes of responsibility, choice, and remembrance. Your thoughts and insights are invaluable, so please share them in the comments below. How do Charley's experiences resonate with you? In what ways do they shape your understanding of history and its impact on our lives today? If you found this exploration of history meaningful, stay tuned for the next video in our series, where we'll delve into another fascinating, yet often overlooked, chapter of the past. Join us as we uncover the hidden truths and untold stories that continue to shape our world. We look forward to embarking on this journey with you, and thank you for being a part of this community dedicated to honoring and learning from history.